No decision has been taken. There's still discussions ongoing, and we will communicate when there is a decision already, which will probably be later today.
Follow-up?
Just wondering, are you in contact with the Ukrainian authorities? Obviously, the Ukrainian government have been extremely critical of the decision the EU has taken on this. Are you in constant contact with them, or is there any contact at all as you make this decision?
Yes, so we are in regular contact with the Ukrainian government, with the 5 member states concerned. As I mentioned last week, on Friday, we had the first meeting of the coordination platform that has been put in place, as agreed by President von der Leyen and President Zelensky on the 9th of May. This was a first introductory meeting, which included representatives from Ukraine, plus representatives from the 5 member states. And it allowed for a discussion on how this platform can help support this process and facilitate and improve the functioning of the solidarity lanes, with the aim of ensuring that this good flow of trade, imports and exports from Ukraine, because at the end of the day, what we are trying to do here is to help Ukraine, that is facing a very difficult situation following Russia's invasion. So in this coordination meeting, of course, which will meet regularly, there is an opportunity to exchange and discuss on the application of these provisions.
Yes, Suzanne.
Just to pick you up on that, I mean, you're saying the main aim is to help Ukraine, but it appears to some people, including the Ukrainians, the main aim of this deal is actually to help these 5 member states, that it's not helping Ukraine, what the EU has done here.
Well, let's not forget that we have extended the suspension of all duties coming for products coming from Ukraine. The first suspension took place 1 year ago, and now we are renewing this suspension for 1 extra year. So this is already helping Ukraine and making sure that they can continue to trade, not only for the European Union, but also for such countries. And that's why we put in place a provision that these preventive measures would only mean that these particular 4 products would not be allowed to be introduced into these countries, but only for transited purposes. So it's just limiting for a time, very limited period of time, the circulation of these products within these countries, but it's not at all limiting the products arriving to other markets, be it in the EU, be it in third countries. And this is very important to show our solidarity and our support for Ukraine. And then we put in place this platform because we realized that there were logistical bottlenecks, that the solidarity lanes were not functioning properly, that many of these products were staying in the 4 countries and were creating disruptions in their markets. And this platform will allow, and is allowing, for these open and frank discussions on the potential difficulties and challenges to make sure that we can overcome them, find practical solutions, and ensure that Ukraine continues to benefit from this suspension.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for Myriam on this issue? Sur ce point, David?
Yes, thank you. Myriam, when Poland introduced the first unilateral measures, the Commission said that it was unacceptable and against the EU rule, since it was a trade issue and EU competence. If I understood well, Hungary has still some unilateral measure in place, and I'm wondering if you are assess the Hungarian measures, and if you can do something about that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's one of the things we insist on since the beginning of these unilateral measures, is that we needed a common EU approach, and that's why we put forward a package at EU level that was agreed by the 5 countries concerned. And in this package, which was end of April, these unilateral measures had to be removed. 4 countries have already removed the measures. We are in contact with the Hungarian authorities. As a result of this lack of removal, we still haven't been able to push forward the support package, to approve the support package, the financial package that we presented as part of this deal. So this is something that is still pending, but we hope, as I said, we have this mechanism of dialogue with the countries, also in the coordination platform, but outside the coordination platform. So we hope to be able to address this soon.
Any other questions on this issue? Yeah.
Yes, my name is Katalin Nagy from Hungarian Radio. Not only Hungary, but 5 or 6 affected countries request the extension. And the fact is, the eastern part of EU's economy is in trouble due to Ukrainian grain dumping.
So, sorry, the press room is not to make statements. The press room is to ask questions. So I would add, what's your question, please? Wait until it's read.
Yes. Did you know this information? Are you agree with this situation?
Yeah.
I mean, we are aware of the logistical bottlenecks and difficulties that these countries are facing due to the increased imports of certain grain products from Ukraine, and that's why precisely we have agreed this common approach that was agreed end of April, where we have different pillars. One of the pillars was the preventive measures, but then we had also the support package that I just mentioned, and then the Commission also explained that it was ready to launch a safeguard investigation, which is foreseen under the suspension of all duties from Ukraine when there is an important increase of certain imports from Ukraine. We can launch a procedure to make sure that we can introduce the necessary measures. That is something that takes a bit more time under the current new regulation that will enter into force now. It's shortened and is made faster. It will be only 3 months. So we are also ready to consider this option to address the difficulties.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on this issue? No? So, Suzanne, we'll let you open the floor on the other issues.
Hi, separate issue now. Thank you, Eric. It's on the latest on the Kosovo-Serbia situation, and wondering, is there any update on this? Is the High Representative planning on holding any meetings? The Kosovan Prime Minister was publicly quite, how would I put it, defiant in interviews on Sunday, and wondering what is the view here from Brussels given the central role of the EAS in the Pristina-Belgrade dialogue?
Peter.
Thank you, Susanna. The latest is what was already said last week and recalled most recently last Saturday in the declaration by High Representative on behalf of all 27 member states, where they asked for immediate actions to de-escalate the situation. The EU Special Representative Miroslav Lajčák is travelling to the region. He will be in Pristina later today and in Belgrade tomorrow, accompanied also by the US Deputy Assistant Secretary for Western Balkans, Mr. Escobar. And they are going to follow up on the European and American calls on Serbia and Kosovo to de-escalate immediately the situation and to take steps that provide sustainable solutions. And the platform for sustainable solutions, to look for sustainable solutions, is indeed the EU-facilitated dialogue. And of course, we are always ready to host and call for a meeting of the next high-level dialogue between President Vučić and Prime Minister Kurti when the conditions are right, when they both agree. But at this stage, the most important thing is the de-escalation, concrete steps on the ground. And exactly for this, we have the EU Special Representative Lajčák on the ground, both in Pristina and Belgrade. And then after coming back, he will report to the High Representative. High Representative will report to the Member States, and they will decide next steps.
Any other questions on Kosovo-Serbia dialogue? Any other questions on foreign affairs for Peter? Yes, Mose.
Thank you, Eric. Well, it could be both foreign affairs, perhaps also rule of law. I'm referring, let's say, to the issue of Sweden's application to NATO. And as perhaps you know, Sweden has enacted a new amendment of its anti-terrorism law, which entered into force on the 1st of June, which will criminalize not only, let's say, terrorist acts, but also the support or participation in terrorist organizations. And obviously this is a kind of concession to Turkey. in order to convince them to accept Sweden's application. I just wonder, okay, it's not any longer a proposal, but it's entered into law in Sweden. So my question is whether the Commission or you have any comments to that, if that really is in line with European practice on anti-terrorist. Thank you.
You're asking us for an assessment of the Swedish law, or the fact that the law would have been adopted in order to comply with requests from Turkey?
Yeah, it's both, I suppose. But I think it's quite a sensitive issue in Sweden, at least, and I think it was scrutinized by a law council in Sweden, which didn't really approve it. So from now on, if you, let's say, promote or support or finance or express any positive opinion, I suppose, of a terrorist organization, you can be sentenced to prison.
Okay. On the specifics of the Swedish law, I'm not sure there is much that we can say at this stage. Yeah, Christian says that we will have to come back to you bilaterally. Peter left a bit quickly. Any other questions on foreign affairs, even though we had this interlude? Okay, I only see one hand raised, and I believe it's on another issue. Virginie, à toi.
Bonjour, vous m'entendez?
Hello, can you hear me?
Et nous te voyons.
Yes, we need to be able to see you
Je
though.
voudrais faire
I
un
can
peu
see
de
you now.
pause sur les
Yes, I wanted
dossiers
to
polonais. Donc,
just
je
talk
voudrais déjà
about
savoir
the
sur
Polish
le plan de relance,
dossier,
où est-ce qu'on en est très concrètement.
about the relaunch and
Je voudrais
recovery
savoir sur
plans. I'd like to know
astreintes, donc les 1 million par jour devenus
about the
500 000
€1 million
par
per
avril. Quel
day
montant ça représente? Ce qui a été prélevé, j'imagine la Pologne n'a
and the
toujours pas
amount
payé.
now. I'm not
Certaines
sure if
fonds
Poland
qui
has
ont été
actually
prélevées. Donc
paid into
effectivement,
the fund.
ça représente
This represents
du manque d'argent pour
a
la
lack of
Pologne.
money for Poland.
Voilà, je pense pas qu'il y ait d'autres dossiers
I'm not really sure if there's other
financiers concernant la Pologne.
financial
J'aimerais avoir
documents with regard or financial files with regard to Poland.
Les sommes un peu en tête, quoi. Qu'est-ce que ça représente par
I'd like to get it right in my head what exactly it represents. So the cohesion fund.
Des ordres de grandeur. Voilà, de quoi
All
on
these
parle.
different things. What are we talking about
Je
exactly?
ne sais pas si on va pouvoir te dresser un portrait financier.
I'm not sure if I can give you an entire precise
de
overview
tout ce qui
of all
concerne
the
la Pologne,
budgets
parce que
and all
comme
the
tu te rends
financial
compte, comme tu le sais, c'est quand même relativement vaste.
measures with regard to Poland, because this is quite a vast subject, so I think we should concentrate on the two main points that you raised. We'll start off maybe with Balash.
Non, pardon, c'est avec Christian
No,
sur
sorry,
les
I'm Christian.
montants,
With regard to the
les
amounts
montants que représentent les astreintes imposées par la Cour de
represented
justice à la
by the
Pologne pour
restrictions
non-respect
imposed
de
by the
son
Court
jugement.
of Justice
Et ensuite, on viendra
on
sur
Poland
où on
in
en est
their
sur le plan
judgment,
de relance
and then we'll touch on
et de
the
résilience.
recovery and resilience
Ce sera avec
plans after that with Verley. So Christian, over to you.
Bonjour Virginie, je peux faire
Hello, Virginie.
un résumé.
I think I can do a quick
Pour toi,
summary
concernant les
So,
sommes. Alors,
with regard to the
sur ce
sums
cas,
in this case.
On attend le jugement aujourd'hui. En fait.
And we're actually expecting a
Alors,
judgment from the court today.
Le 14 juillet
On the
2021,
14th
la
of
Cour de
July
justice a procédé
2021,
à
the
la
Court of Justice
Pologne.
started a procedure against
Et
Poland.
comme la Pologne n'avait pas pris les mesures nécessaires,
Because Poland has not taken necessary measures to conform
à cette ordonnance
with
de la Cour,
the
le
judgment
27
of the
octobre,
court
2021,
dated on the
le
7th
justice
of
a
October
infligé à la
2021.
journalière de
There was
1
a
million d'euros.
restriction of €1 million placed on Poland by the President of the Court.
Astreinte est devenue
This restriction
3 novembre
decreased on the 3rd of November 2021.
3 novembre 2021, nous avons envoyé un nombre de
So during this period in 2021, we had a number of calls for payment,
je cherche le mot français,
trying to find the exact French word for cost of
de demande de paiement simplement.
payment.
Oui, alors on a envoyé 16 demandes
So we sent
de paiement,
16 calls for
à la
payment
demande à la Pologne,
to Poland,
couvrant la période
covering the period 3rd of November 2021
jusqu'à 20
up
avril
to 20th of April 2023.
Alors tu peux faire
So,
le maths
and you can do the maths yourself there.
millions d'euros.
It's over €500 million, I believe, but maybe you can do the maths exactly yourself.
Et Après, tu vas te souvenir que le 21
After this, you will remember on the 21st of April, the Vice President of the Court of Justice confirmed in their judgment that Poland were still not fully in conformity with the judgment of the court, but they did believe that Poland had taken a certain number of measures to remedy the situation. So it was reduced by €500,000 per day. This is reduced up to the period of the judgment, and we have not sent any calls for payment up to this point.
Merci. Donc
Thank
ça, c'est
you
sur le premier point.
very much. That's on the very first point. Now on the second point, I will ask Verle to come up with regard to the state of play on the recovery and resilience plans.
Oui, merci beaucoup pour
Yes, thank you very much for your question.
Donc,
So where are we?
Le 17 juin, comme pour rappel, le Conseil donc
On the
17th
17th of June last year, the Council approved the
plan
Polish Recovery and Resilience Plan, as you know, which was composed of 23
subventions et de 11,5 milliards d'euros
billion euros in grants and over 100
pour rappel
billion
aussi,
in loans.
on a expliqué maintes fois ici dans
We've
la
explained
presse, la
several
Pologne
times here
s'est
in the
engagée
press
à
from Poland
réaliser
has been
4
engaged
super milestones, donc
in
super
meeting
jalons,
4 super milestones,
traduction en français,
as we call them,
qui sont liés
which are
au
linked
renforcement des aspects
to
importants de
the strengthening
l'indépendance du
of
pouvoir judiciaire
important
polonais.
aspects with regard to the freedom of the
Cela
judiciary in
signifie
Poland.
qu'aucun paiement
This
au
signifies
titre
that
de la facilité
no payment
n'est
under the
possible tant que la Pologne n'aura
RRF
pas
was
assuré
possible to Poland until
pleinement
such time
et
as Poland had
correctement
fully
la mise en œuvre de
assured
ces
the
4
implementation of these 4 super milestones.
Et comme pour tous les États membres,
And as is the case for all member
nous ne faisons pas de
states,
commentaires sur
we do not
les
make any
discussions
comments on
sur le plan,
ongoing discussions
mais
on the
on
plan.
entretient, comme d'ailleurs avec tous les États membres, un dialogue très régulier.
We are, of course, in
sur
regular
la mise en
dialogue with
œuvre
all
du plan.
the member states with regard to the implementation of the plan.
Merci. Et,
Thank you
peut-être
very much,
juste
and
une
perhaps
précision
as
en
well,
ce qui
just
concerne
one quick
les fonds de
clarification
cohésion,
with
vu que
regard to
tu
the
as
cohesion
mentionné ça,
fund
parce que
that
c'est
you
effectivement
also
aussi
mentioned,
une dimension de la
which
question.
is
Voilà,
also
le balai
a
des
dimension
porte-paroles.
of the question. So we're having a bit of a spokesperson
En ce qui concerne
musical chairs here,
ce
everyone
dossier
coming up.
crucial.
This is also a very crucial element. Yes, thank you very much for the question with regard to the cohesion fund. As you know, this is particularly important. And what's very important is the respect of the self-assessment. The self-assessment that the member states make with regard to the application and respect or non-respect of specific conditions before proceeding to financing. The self-assessment, if it is negative, then you know that there will be reimbursements of the reimbursement of expenses will not be possible to member states, and the payments, the pre-financing payments as we call them, will be paid to the member states to be able to launch their programs. And they're also not possible to reimburse any costs linked as well. But there will be reimbursements for costs linked to for member states to try and meet their objectives and goals. Thank you. Virginie, you have a follow-up question?
Oui, je voulais juste vérifier
Yes,
un
I'd
truc.
like to just verify one thing.
Pour le plan de relance,
So for the Relaunch and Resilience Fund, is there a particular moment
pour la Pologne,
where you could see payments being made out to Poland, or is it simply stopped?
C'est 2026. Est-ce
Is
que
2026?
c'est avant? Enfin,
Is
je veux dire,
it
est-ce que
before
cette
that?
situation, d'un point de vue légal,
Because from a legal perspective,
peut perdurer longtemps?
it could take some
Alors, il y
time.
a des limites
Yes,
dans,
there are limits
dans le règlement sur
in the
le RRF,
regulation on the
effectivement, sur les
RRF,
engagements.
and particularly with regard
De ce
to
point de
the
vue-là,
engagements.
Verle va pouvoir
I think Verle
nous
can
expliquer cela.
explain everything on that to us.
Oui, Virginie, donc comme tu sais,
Yes, Virginie, as you know, the limit
débourser
for drawing down these funds under the RRF is the 31st of December 2026. As you know, the facility was and is a temporary instrument.
Voilà.
Excellent.
Alors, y a-t-il d'autres questions
Any other
sur
questions
ce sujet?
on this subject?
David.
David.
Oui, merci. Et pardon de continuer le bal des
very much indeed.
porte-parole.
And sorry for continuing
première
this
question, c'est pour Verle,
musical
en fait.
chairs. I had a question for Verle, actually.
Comment ça marche?
I'm just wondering how it works in this particular instance, because
vous pouvez pas faire des déboursements.
Since you can't disperse these
Est-ce que le
funds,
gouvernement polonais
does that mean that
avance dans ses
the
projets
Polish government carries on with their projects,
d'investissement,
investment projects,
pont,
for
je connais pas le
example,
plan,
a bridge or whatever? I'm not familiar with the plan,
ils ont
but
déjà
I'm just
commencé
wondering whether they've already
à faire les projets,
initiated
et
projects,
après on va décider les remboursements.
and then there will be a decision on reimbursement if they comply with these milestones that you mentioned, or
même en termes de réalisation
is
du projet.
all implementation of the project stopped until you're clear about that. Now, Balázs touched on this, I think, possibly talking about the order for payment, these requests. Has Poland actually paid up when they receive those requests, or are they doing what we call offsetting?
Je pense qu'on est dans le cas de figure second principalement. Mais sur la question que tu as posée
scenario that we're talking about
Verle,
of offsetting, but since you asked Verle, I think it's pretty clear. Let's hear the answer. Well, yes, it's a very clear-cut situation. If a member state decides whether or not to press ahead with implementation of various measures
qui sont dans le plan.
That are in the plan, and they are free to do so. So, essentially, nothing would prevent Poland from pressing ahead with the investment they require, but what's important are the payment requests that have come in from the European Commission. Looking to Balázs about offsetting, that's normally how we get the funds that were mandated, required by the Court of Justice. Mathieu.
Oui, bonjour Eric.
Yes.
Tu m'entends?
Hello Eric, can you hear me?
Et nous te voyons.
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you. Go ahead.
C'est sur les 4 milestones du plan de
milestones under the Relaunch and Resilience Plan. Could you tell us
l'une d'entre elles ou plusieurs ont
if
été
one or several
mises en œuvre?
Of the milestones have been reached?
Et voilà quoi. Est-ce que vous pouvez donner plus d'informations
Just maybe get
sur le contenu?
Extra information on the content of those.
Merci. Verle.
Thank you, Verle. What can you tell us on that?
Oui. Donc, effectivement, donc, par rapport aux milestones...
With regard to the super milestones...
Juste une seconde.
Just a moment while I find it.
Donc, par rapport aux milestones, les 4 super milestones...
With regard to the 4 super milestones,
qui visent à,
and then there are other milestones based on these are the milestones based on strengthening the role and freedom of the judiciary. I do have an update. I'm just trying to find it now.
On va vérifier ça tranquillement. On n'est pas ici pour vérifier.
We'll take a minute. You can maybe look through your emails and verify that, and then you can come back to the podium. So we'll come back maybe bilaterally to Matthew and anyone else who might be interested in this. Verle would be able to send you the information bilaterally. Thank you.
Y a-t-il d'autres questions sur
Any other questions
la Pologne?
On Poland?
Non, je n'en vois pas.
No, I don't see any.
Pour
any other questions for us today?
Tommaso.
Oui, bonjour, Tommaso Gallavotti de l'agence de presse italienne. C'est une question pour Verle.
Press agency. I had a question for Verle again, if I could. Still on the RRF in Italy.
Quelques polémiques dans les derniers jours, mais
I know there's been a bit of discussion about this in the last few days, but it would appear that the Italian government is currently
en train de penser de transférer des fonds
considering transferring funds from the RRF to Repower EU. I just wonder whether you could give us a theory about how much of the funds can in fact be transferred from the Recovery and Resilience Fund to Repower EU. Because there are some state-owned companies that I believe are seeking to make use of those funds. Thank you. Well, it's important to bear in mind that member states are able to put forward a new chapter within the RRF, within the plan, that would seek to achieve the objectives in REPowerEU. So it's not about taking money out of one pot to put it into another. The idea is that you're adding a new angle, a new dimension, a new topic to the plan. Now, I'm not sure whether we'll be able to give you a maximum figure of the amount that is to be transferred. Maybe Verle can fill us in.
Oui, donc effectivement, donc comme Eric
well,
l'a dit,
thank you. As Eric has said,
l'Italie n'a pas encore
just to spell this out, Italy has yet to submit a REPowerEU chapter to us, but we are in talks constantly with Italy, as with all member states, discussing on the REPowerEU chapter. It's our understanding that Italy will add a REPowerEU chapter, including measures seeking to reduce their dependence on Russian sources of energy, and also to kickstart the green transition. As far as the amount is concerned, the total, I don't have the figures here in front of me, but REPowerEU comes from various sources. Just to remind you, member states are, well, there are new subsidies, grants under REPowerEU that can be channeled towards the RRF. So Italy would then be entitled to claim part of that grant. There's also an opportunity to shift funds under the Brexit Adjustment Reserve and also some of the cohesion funds as well. Well, I would refer you to the fact sheet that we published last May of last year on this very topic, looking at the various topics that can be used to finance REPowerEU. Verle, if I could just emphasize that the maximum grants for Italy under REPowerEU are 2.7 billion euros.
Oui, David.
David.
Oui, excusez-moi, mais pour éviter toute incompréhension, parce
just to make sure I understood everything correctly, because often with the Italian press we do have misunderstandings.
Est-ce que le gouvernement peut
Can the government
modify le plan national
the National Recovery and Resilience Plan
pour prendre de l'argent
to be able to take
une partie,
money,
je sais pas combien, mais
I don't know how much money, but some money
du plan originaire
from the original plan,
mettre cet argent dans le chapitre
this money into the REPowerEU chapter.
Donc, ce qui est très important à comprendre,
what's very important to understand is that to be able to
donc dans ce chapitre REPowerEU, il faut des nouvelles mesures.
Under this REPowerEU chapter, you need new measures, new reforms, new investments to access these funds.
Donc, ils ne sont pas encore compris dans le plan initial.
So they're not fully outlined in the initial plan. Follow up?
Oui, ça c'est clair. Je l'ai bien
That's
compris.
very clear. I understood that.
La question qui est,
my question,
comment dire, technique, mais pas
maybe it's
très technique.
technical question without being too technical.
Changer le plan,
can you change
comme le gouvernement italien
as the Italian government have announced that they want to do,
faire un amendement au plan
make an
original,
amendment to the original plan,
enlever des projets,
taking
je sais pas lesquels,
projects, whatever they may be, and then taking the money and putting it into the REPowerEU chapter with new projects.
C'est ça. Si on peut shifter,
can you shift
utiliser ce mot,
funds, that's the word you
les
use,
ressources
shift,
du plan de relance
resources from
vers
the original RRP to this new chapter under REPowerEU.
Ce qui est clair, c'est que l'ambition de réforme doit
What's clear is that the reform ambition needs to stay the same. That's what we have explained.
Par exemple, dans d'autres États membres,
and for example, in other member states, we've seen REPowerEU chapters put in, and usually they involve scale-ups of measures that have already been taken under the initial plan. And that's all that I can say on that for the moment.
En termes de sources de financement, tu sais
With
qu'il y
regard to the
avait
financing,
un certain nombre de prêts
There is a certain amount of loans, money that is in the form of loans,
les États membres,
which is borrowed by the
pouvait
member
être
states,
donc appelé par les États membres le souhaitant,
and can be
dans
used
le
by the
cadre,
member states
par
as
exemple, de l'émission
they
de
wish
leur
within
nouveau chapitre
the framework of the new Repower EU chapter. So talking about financing sources, additional financing sources with regard to what was already outlined in the original plan. Yes, go ahead.
Non, je t'en prie.
Go ahead.
C'est encore un follow-up. En fait,
yes, another follow-up question.
Pour le plan italien,
as far as the Italian plan is concerned, we're asking about projects
ne seraient plus possible de réaliser
that
parce
could
qu'il y
no
a des
longer
circonstances
be
objectives
carried
qui ne le
out
permettent pas.
because circumstances, objective circumstances would preclude that. We're talking about infrastructure projects, for example.
Aussi à cause de l'inflation.
This is also down to inflation, the energy crisis, and so on. But aside from that, we've observed that it's not been possible to conclude these projects prior to 2026, the end of 2026. So there has been a shift.
D'un certain nombre de projets infrastructurels
of the infrastructure projects have been moved to other projects that are entitled to benefit from Repower EU funding or funding from other sources as well. But it's about these circumstances, this objective criterion. That's the discussion we're having in the Italian Parliament. Do you have any notion of that? Well, thank you for your question. I think it's maybe important just to recap the various possibilities that Italy has about changing its RRF plan. So first of all, there's a technical change that can be made in order to update the grand total, the end amount of the RRF subsidies.
Un petit donc ça va augmenter un peu.
So in other words, it would be a slight increase, a top-up, about 140 million euros odd. So that's one thing. Secondly, Italy has also advised us of their intention to request additional loans over and above the maximum level that Italy had already requested in their original plan. And the rules allow for the maximum loan amount to be exceeded, so 6.8% of the 2019 GNI, where there are extenuating circumstances. And then the third point, and this comes close to your question, I think, Article 21 of the RRF regulation states that once the Council has adopted a plan and approved it, then a member state, in exceptional cases, is able to request an amendment to some of the particular milestones and targets if there is justification provided for those amendments, so if objective reasons are advanced for doing so. So I think that's important to underscore. And then one other thing. There's also an option, and indeed we encourage all member states to include a Repower EU chapter in their revised plan. So I think that's key.
Merci.
Thank you.
Je ne vois pas d'autres questions.
I can't see any other questions on this particular topic.
Y a-t-il d'autres questions pour nous aujourd'hui?
Are there other questions? Go ahead, David.
Yeah. Hello. Sorry, it's for Miriam. It's not on Ukraine, but it's on the the reimposition of fertilizer tariffs. I think there was a deadline of the 17th of May for a Commission report. I think we're past that now, and there's a deadline of, the the suspension runs out in July, I understand. I was just wondering if you could give an update where we are, what the Commission has proposed. Is it reimposition of the tariffs or a suspension, a continued suspension? Thanks.
Sorry, I'm not sure which tariffs are you talking about?
It's on fertilizers, urea and ammonia, if you want to know the details.
But tariffs vis-à-vis which?
It was a sort of energy crisis measure to suspend tariffs on these products globally, yeah.
Okay.
And it expires.
I think we'll have to come back to you on that bilaterally, David. No, I don't think we have the answer here. It's a bit too specific. Hold on. Yeah.
Can I ask another question for Tim? Thanks.
Yes.
So, Tim, it's for, I think Šefčovič confirmed on Twitter or retweeted something on Twitter. I was just wondering, it's about the Ukraine gas storage, whether the Commission is in talks with various banks, various international lending institutions about guarantees to enable the storage of gas in Ukraine's underground gas storage. Thanks.
Tim.
Hi, David. Thanks for the question. As you say, I mean, the Vice President has spoken about this in an interview in the Financial Times, and I'm not going to have much really that I can add to his words. I mean, you take those as you read them. So, yeah, the Commission is exploring if and how guarantees issued by public institutions could perhaps support unlocking access to natural gas storages in Ukraine for European countries. I think the broader context, as you know very well, is that last year we agreed on gas storage targets across Europe to ensure our energy security. For the winter, the target for last year, for the 1st of November, was 80% filling, which we reached in advance and actually exceeded. Storage capacity in Europe, in EU storages, reached 95% at its peak last year. The target this year is to reach 90% by the 1st of November, and gas storage today is already at almost 70%. So that's where we stand with the overall storage situation. And as I say, you've seen the Vice President's words on potential support there, but there's nothing much more I can offer.
Okay, follow-up.
I was just wondering if this is impacted at all by the taxonomy rules or any of these rules governing the financing of gas or fossil fuel infrastructure, or are we still under the energy crisis exceptional measures? Thanks.
I don't know exactly what you mean when you say impacted by the taxonomy rules. I mean, the rules that are in place are the ones that we always have to comply by. So, in that sense, yes, everything is always impacted by the rules in place.
Okay, David, did I see? No. Okay. Any other energy issues for Tim while he's on the podium? No. Or climate? No. Any other questions for us today? Odile.
Bonjour. Les récents troubles au Sénégal ne risquent-ils pas de mettre en péril, voire de faire annuler les projets européens de coopération avec ce pays, notamment pour la fabrication de médicaments?
Now, who wants to take this question? Because it's a tricky. C'est pas une question évidente en termes de répartition.
It's not a very obvious question when it comes to picking who should respond. You're talking about political troubles.
Démonstrations aux manifestations qui ont lieu. Attends, il faut que tu attendes que ce soit rouge.
Protests, is that the case?
De mort, et il y a eu ce matin, je crois, il y a une.
This morning, I believe.
Ce week-end, une réponse
maybe it was this weekend. There was a very strong response
des autorités policières.
From the policing authorities in country. And just as an observer, it seems that these troubles will continue, or at least could continue in a country which, despite everything, is relatively stable in a very troubled region.
Mais je pense que toi tu parles.
I think
de notre soutien
You're talking about our
annoncé à l'aide
support
à la production de vaccins au
to
Sénégal.
the production of vaccines
Est-ce que cela
in
va
Senegal.
impacter le
Is that
soutien que l'Union
your exact
européenne
question? Will this impact European support
au Sénégal et plus
that
largement
we're
à la
sending
région
to Senegal and to the region more largely on vaccine production? Is that your question?
Et si je me souviens bien,
Yes,
il y avait
vaccine
aussi
production. But if I remember correctly, there's also
concernant
projects concerning
l'industrie pharmaceutique
the pharmaceutical industry being developed with
et
private partners in the area as well. So I'd like to know just a little bit
où on en était là, sur ces questions.
where we are on this issue.
Nabila.
Nabila.
Merci Odile pour ta question.
Thank you, Odile, for this question.
Nous avons fait une déclaration.
We did make a statement through the spokesperson service at the beginning of the troubles in Senegal, and we said that the European Union is concerned at the increase in political tensions and social tensions in the area.
Justement, les tensions continuent. On déplore la mort
And we
des
do
personnes,
deplore the murder of people and the violence that you mentioned over the last few nights. And in this context, it is essential that the elements of the long, successful tradition of democracy and liberties in Senegal are maintained by all. The European Union does have confidence in the solidarity and in the strength of democracy and the political forces in Senegal to be inclusive and peaceful. And in attempt to respond to your question on the budgetary element and on the loans or the assistance that we give Senegal, we can come back to you on this. Thank you very much. Any other questions for Nabila? Not the case. Other subjects for us today?
C'est une question apparemment technique, mais en fait très politique.
Well, I've got a technical question, but it is somewhat political too. Due diligence with regard to negotiations with the European Parliament, that was approved on the 1st of June. And now we have the trilogue that is underway. Due diligence for enterprises.
Alors, ma question est, il est clair que cette directive, les sociétés
it's clear that by means of this directive, companies or businesses concerned will have to stop relations with commercial partners, trade partners in the value chain that do not comply with environmental rights, human rights, social rights that are protected under international conventions.
On est en train d'essayer de s'émanciper de la
we're trying to break free from an excessive dependency on various countries, like China for one, as far as raw materials are concerned, and various components used in manufacturing. How are these companies going to manage if they are required to put a stop to their commercial relationships with China or any other country that fails to comply with various laws or rights if there's no alternative to source a critical raw material or component, at least for now, for the time being, until they have sought an alternative?
La politique géopolitique de l'Union européenne. C'est une question qui, je crois, se pose aujourd'hui qu'il y a la négociation en cours.
Means that sometimes there's no other option. So is the Commission expecting that there will be some kind of transitional phase to allow these companies to find a way forward, to make sure that they don't end up without these commodities because they're sticking by the rules? Well, firstly, you'll know full well that we never comment on ongoing legislation procedures, and that's exactly the case here, as you said.
La deuxième chose à dire, c'est que
the second comment I would make
évidemment la Commission se préoccupe de manière
is that, of course, the Commission
large
broadly is concerned about supply, particularly raw materials and critical raw materials especially, and we've been putting a lot of effort into this for quite some time. We've been reporting on critical raw materials that are required for the working of industry. And you might recall that the President herself, in a recent speech, touched many times on the importance of us working together with our partners, setting up a commodities club. So I think the key point here is diversification. In other words, it's important to ensure that individual companies, but more generally the European economy, is in a state to obtain the raw materials that it requires, not from a single source, of course, because as you've said, that will increase their vulnerability. They need to seek supply from a wide range of sources, and whatever happens, and this incidentally is what the European legislation is trying to encourage them to do, we want industry to talk to their suppliers, companies to talk to suppliers, so that our concerns are taken into account throughout the value chain. So there are various angles as to how we can work on this. But I won't dwell on this at any greater length because, as I mentioned, this is currently being discussed between the co-legislators. Are there any other questions for us today?
I have 2 hands raised in the chat, and I go to, is it Bina? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Please turn on your mic and your camera.
Can you see and hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, thanks for the floor. And I'm not sure if it's for Nabila or someone else because, I'm still finding out who is for who. So my question is, the High Representative tweeted during his visit in Singapore saying that he had a successful discussion with the Korean defense minister, and he mentioned that he discussed the Ukraine's needs for ammunition. But after this, the Korean defense ministry denied that it was not a discussion. So I was wondering, did the High Representative some kind of request on the Korean government for the ammunition support, or was it a general statement? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm looking to my colleagues who I think will have to come back to you on that very, very specific question, but a question well noted. Bina, we will come back. Any other questions for us today? Caroline.
Hi, thank you. Caroline Born, Deutschland Radio. I got a question on the Pact on Migration and Asylum about the negotiations that are going on. And I wanted to ask if the Commission has proposed any concrete numbers on relocation, according that the Interior Ministers are meeting on Thursday. And also I read about the number that for countries who do not want to relocate, that they can compensate that by paying 22,000 euros per refugee. Could you confirm this number?
And who's stepping in for Anita, who will come up.
Yes, thank you for your question. That allows me to clarify once more some information that is not really correct that is circulating. I think also Anita had a question this recently about alleged numbers about mandatory locations. So there were, of course, discussions about progress on the pact, as always, recently in the Coreper on 24 May, and of course it will also be, as always, a topic at the Council later this week. But to answer your question, so no, we have not proposed any specific numbers there. The issue is, or our position is, that solidarity must be ensured. This is what we have proposed in the very beginning. When proposing the pact, we proposed a system of mandatory solidarity, and the member states are the ones who will be able to decide on the solidarity measure, which can vary between relocation, financial support, operational support. It is important that member states' need of support get it, but the basic concept of the pact is that there is mandatory solidarity of different kinds.
Thank you very much. Any other issues for us today? No, so we will meet again tomorrow for the midday briefing. Thank you very much.
Okay.